they think that I'm suspicious, so it's okay to kill me, and that they, you know, will have no repercussions for what happens. And so that's why I'm here, and hopefully you'll feel empowered to chant or say what you want, or come up here or shout from where you are. You don't need to be a leader or present for us, but you need to be able to speak, because this is your reason for being here. So we thank you, and like I said, if you want to say anything, you know, feel free to come up and say a few words. So we're gonna have some background. If you know anything about the case, feel free to, you know, chart it out. You know, if you know dates, something like that. We got some historians in here somewhere. Do that. Feel free to do that. So you wanna come up and say something?
Hello, my name is Naima. I'm from the States as well.
Hey, comrades.
And I came with a mind to learn about, you know, what provokes people to come to these types of protests. Unfortunately, you know, I found out about the news of the case. I was anxiously waiting while I was in the States 2 weeks ago for a verdict to be reached, and it wasn't reaching until I was here in the States. And it saddened me to hear that a place that I regard as like my home country, or the place that I was born, where, you know, that things can happen to people that look like me just based upon their skin color or based upon how people are dressed. So, you know, I came and I was asking a couple people, like, well, like, why are you here? Like, what does this mean to you? You know, the first thing I saw when I came over here was this poster that came up, "No justice, no peace." And I don't mean no disrespect, but this looked quite peaceful to me. And clearly justice has not been served.
Yeah.
So my question coming to these protests is always like, what do we do? Are we just going to be here and pose?
Exactly.
Take pictures? Revolutionary, Black Power, what?
Say that.
You know what I mean? Like, are we just coming here to do that? Are we really protesting? What does it mean to protest? What does it mean to stand up against injustice? Clearly it's injustice.
Say that.
Yeah.
In the same state that George Zimmermann was acquitted for, the same state, not guilty, right? This man is not guilty. When he got out of the car, pursued a young male that looked suspicious, called the police, and they told him, don't pursue this young man, wait for us to get there. He decided to go ahead and pursue him as well. And if you look at the map, he had to go really far to track him down. So when this young male, think about a 17-year-old boy walking in the dark by himself home. What do you think I'm gonna do if I see somebody behind me? If I could be colloquial, somebody running up on me. What am I gonna do? Am I gonna defend myself?
Hell yeah.
Exactly. So he defended himself, and George Zimmermann clearly couldn't defend himself, so he had to get the gun. And the interesting thing about the case to me is that this man was found not guilty, and he pursued this young man and killed him. In the same state, this woman got 20 years in prison for just shooting a gun to warn a man that was abusing her. She was getting abused, and she shot a warning shot. And she got 20 years in prison. Y'all talk about no justice, no peace, right? It is no justice. So why is the peace still here? So what does this mean? This is a time that's been appropriated in many rallies, many protests, but what does this really mean? So that's what I'm here to figure out. What does it mean to y'all? Because this means something to me. I got a little brother that's 17 years old. He's going off to college. Where is he going to get discriminated against? His name is Ramadan. He has a Muslim name. Is that, you know, we had many protests in the States, you know, where Muslim people came together because they're discriminated against as well, Islamophobia. Like, I worry about my young brother and sister who are twins that are going off to college and going to be discriminated against. So what are we going to do? Are we just going to sit back and let the state make all these decisions for us, and they're supposed to be here to protect and serve? Protect and serve who? Who are they protecting and serving? Because it seems like they're policing the people that they're supposed to be protecting and serving. So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here, and I'm provoked. Because this affects me. I have family members that are killed based off of discrimination. This affects me personally. And now I have to fear for my little brother's life when he's off to college, because he likes to walk to places by himself as well. So that's why I want to challenge you guys. Like, why are you here? There's clearly no justice. So what do we do?
Yeah.
I think that was really moving, and we have to think about these kinds of reversals. Trayvon Martin was already not free. Trayvon Martin was the one who already existed in a kind of prison. he wasn't free to walk down a public street by himself. There's this sense in the States that in order to hold up our normativity, you can be this hero. You can be a sort of self-appointed vigilante, and as long as what you're doing is fighting the bad guy, if we've identified bad guys, yeah, you can blow away bad guys because that's heroic and it's dramatic, and you can be this like real American hero. Trayvon Martin was always the bad guy because the American imperialist system fed us racism in order to divide the working class, and we bought it. So many of us bought it. So many of us continue to buy it, and it is a hard thing because it's all around us. It almost can't help but seep in by osmosis, and we have to be vigilant against it at all times. Why would you assume that someone walking down the street by themselves is up to no good? Why aren't people interrogating these assumptions and asking, where does this come from and who profits from me feeling this way? In whose interest is it that I'm pursuing this? Why do I need this heroism, and why am I so afraid of this other person? Where does the fear come from? It comes from a social indoctrination to keep the working classes divided. And that's the real, no, that's a secondary tragedy here. I mean, the real tragedy is the loss of an innocent child. I mean, when I was about 6 years old, my dad left the house one afternoon, and one evening. It was dark out, but not really very late. And my mother came in at one point and said, "Where's your dad?" And I said, "I don't know." He wasn't actually given his phone call or any legal representation until the following day. Same thing, walking down a residential street, minding his own business, white man following him. He would walk a few steps, stop, look back. The person who's following him had stopped. He tried to speak to him, the person wouldn't speak to him. It's this unwritten crime among a long unwritten list of unwritten crimes that you can only somehow commit if you're a person of color, but walking at night while black and male. And you can get the death penalty for it. So Trayvon Martin was never free.
Well, I think you've heard from a lot of people from the States. I'd like to hear someone with a British accent, perhaps. Come on up, please.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm from Norwich. Hi everyone. I'm from Norwich. We are Norwich, and the Norwich Unite Against Fascism. I'm a Socialist Workers' Party member. I just wanted to talk about Norwich and about why this matters. Because Trayvon Martin brings solidarity from Norwich and from the SWP and from everyone, basically. But this is about racism, and as the other previous speaker said, this is about disgusting racism, where a person can be picked out and killed for the colour of their skin, and it's also about class, because the cops would never pick on a rich person walking down the street. They would only ever pick on a working class person walking down the street. And secondly, I think we need to relate it to England with the death of Lee Rigby, and that 3 weeks before Lee Rigby's death, an Asian person was murdered by racists, and the police didn't take a notice, and neither did the media. But when a white person was killed, it's all over the press every day, constantly. And in Norwich, the racist and fascist DDL tried to march and remember that death several times to spread their racist hate. And so I think that racism is not just in America, it's in Britain. How do we fight that? that's the question at hand. So last November, the EDL tried to come to Norwich to spread their hate, to spread racist ideas and make it more likely that in where we live, that racism will get a foothold. And 2,000 people came onto the streets of Norwich, black, white, Asian, Jew, straight, gay, doesn't matter. The whole working class came out to say no to that, and that's how we fight racism, through unity, through black and white uniting, and that's the only way we can fight the state and the police and all these nasty racist ideas. And lastly, we have to fight the system. That's how I think of it anyway, but obviously people disagree. We start from where we are, and we march against racists, and we march when the police kill and attack and intimidate our communities, but also we have to think about where this comes from, and this comes from capitalism, because they need it to divide and rule people, because if we're not divided amongst each other, we can bring down the system. And so we look to Egypt, to Tunisia, and even to Africa, the massive protests in Africa at the moment, with working general strikes. There's a general strike next week in Greece, for example. We look around the world, and that's where we can change society rather than being divided amongst ourselves. So solidarity from We Are Norwich, and I hope you can continue your fight. When I go back to Norwich, I'd like to send a solidarity, or get everyone to send a solidarity message.
Yeah.
Black and white united.
I just want to chime in another time, because I know the media, at least in America, often has been known to portray, people that speak with passion as these angry people that want to incite violence and incite
Angry black woman.
Angry black woman, right? So I did want to speak on that note, because he talked about solidarity. Since I've been here, I've been studying the British Black Panthers. They were active from 1968 to 1972. Do you know what the police's worst fear was? Solidarity. Unity among races. You know why? Because they want to make it like a us versus them. Blacks versus white. They want to separate us. That's peace to them. They're at peace when we're divided, because they continue to rule. So when I say no justice, no peace, we need to unify.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean take up violence, although I believe in protecting yourself. It just simply means just unifying, because they're at peace when we're divided. So let's just not let the media, because you'll see the media dividing us like it's a race thing, although it is. It's a class thing, although it is. But it's all that. It's just simply don't let them divide us, because we don't want it to be us versus ourselves. We want it to be us against the states that sanction the killing of people that don't need to be killed. So that's what no justice, no peace means. Let's let them have unrest by us unifying and continuing to fight, raise awareness about this, and show that we support justice, and they won't have no peace.
All right.
I thought I'd pick up that thread about the idea of violence and self-defense. So there's this, we have so-called stand your ground states. I didn't even know about this until Trayvon Martin was killed, but apparently self-defense doesn't just mean defending yourself against the immediate threat of bodily harm in these states. You can defend yourself against a perceived threat. I'll sort of understand what that means and how that played out in the slaying of Trayvon Martin. Although, to be fair, they didn't use the stand your ground defense. It was a standard self-defense move here. But still, I think that this does embolden people. If you look at stand your ground states and the kinds of justified killings and the racial element to those justified killings, you see a really startling and disgusting trend. But further, I think that there's something here about dramatic violence and kind of quotidian violence. The kind of the sorts of things that I was talking about in terms of the drip effect of being excluded, of kind of being disenfranchised, of seeing older generations of people like you constantly disrespected, humiliated, undermined, abused, harassed. I mean, these are the kinds of daily bits of violence that people of color are supposed to put up with, because they're not bang, bang, punch, punch violence. We're not supposed to think of them as violence. Turning around and saying to somebody, stop following me, that's a moment of trying to put an end to an act of violence. So I think that we need to think in a less kind of institutional way about what we think of as violence, as self-defense. And so when people are put into a position where they're expected to take constant degradation and humiliation, those people are subject to violence. And so, yeah, so we do need to think about how now we defend ourselves against that, kind of daily state-sanctioned social violence.
Councillor, just a quick say, don't forget there is a connection here with drone strikes. If you think that, just say, remember there is a connection here with drone strikes. As someone said recently, if you think that a black life is cheap in the United States, you should see how cheaply black and brown lives are treated outside the United States. 50 civilians are killed for every so-called terrorist by these drone strikes. So there is a connection here. And yeah, I just wanted to pick up on that thread about defending yourself, that the people who are on the receiving end of this, they don't need to be told how to fight back. As well as the right wing, as well as the Daily Mail, the rest of them saying, oh no, there's riots in the streets, there'll be lots of pious people in the papers saying, you need to protest in the right way, you need to retain credibility. And actually that's not for them to say. The people who are presiding over this social order, presiding over this, the violence of the social order, are in no position to tell black people, to tell working class people how they're going to fight back. So let's fight back as we will.
Alright guys, so I'm really glad to be here, obviously because of something that's happened in the States, and it's good that everybody's coming out about that. But I've got a question for all of you. What are you going to do about what's also going on in the UK? Because it's not just happening in America.
Yeah.
You know, people of colour are being attacked everywhere. I'm a mother of 3 mixed race children. Even my kids getting a bit of grief here and there. And we have to start with education as well. We need to be educating our children so they're not growing up with this bullshit and giving it out. But last week I sat in Portcullis House behind Doreen Lawrence and had to listen to that poor woman yet again, after 20 years, be questioned, give evidence, And we were hearing figures about that Erickson guy, whoever idiot in charge of this police rubbish. He was saying, he was trying to say, well, there's only 6% of stop and searches with black people that don't get charged. Only 6%, but then I say there shouldn't be any percent, right? It should be 0%. But actually the figures of that are much higher, because somebody else came out and said actually it's 27%. So while we're here talking about Trayvon Martin, and it's disgraceful as is every time it happens, what are we going to do in the UK also about what our police are doing right now all the time? We need to think about this.
Yes.
Hi, I'm from an organisation called Defend the Right to Protest, and taking up what that lady just said, we originally got together in the wake of the student demonstrations in 2010, when the police kettled the students, they used batons. One of the students was a guy called Alfie Meadows, who got hit over the head so hard he had to have life-saving surgery. When his family tried to take up the case against the police, they promptly, 3 months later, came round and arrested him, charged him with violent disorder, which carries a maximum sentence of 5 years. Now this young guy ended up going to court 3 times, because the first time the jury couldn't come to a decision, the The second time there was illness and they had to abort the case. And in February of this year, he went to court with another student that they'd arrested called Zach King, and they were found not guilty. Now, that was a bit of a victory for us in a way, but of the 19 students that said that pleaded not guilty, 18 of them were actually found not guilty, which means it's a vast waste of public money when they're telling us they've got no money for stuff. But anyway, I urge you to have a look on our website, Defend the Right to Protest. We're involved in many cases. We support the Sean Rigg family, for instance. We support all the families who've lost people. I think it's getting on for 1,500 people have died in police custody in rather dubious circumstances. Virtually all of them are black people, and that's since 1990. And not one policeman has been held to account for it. We know what happened to the paper seller at the GA protests, Ian Tomlinson, who was pushed over by a policeman. It later transpired that this particular cop had lots of run-ins in the past with people and had many complaints made against him. But basically, as I say, if you can, we're defendtheright.org.uk, so have a look at our website and see what you can do to join in. We need as many people as possible to come out on days like this, to let people know that we're not going to stand for their shit. We really want to live in peace and harmony.
Hi, my name's Helen. I'm a member of the Socialist Party. I just wanted to make a point about the stuff around Stephen Lawrence, because there's another case of a young man being attacked and killed, and the police, knowing who were the killers and doing nothing about it, not convicting him. And that is because it transpired recently, rather than gathering evidence and putting his murderers behind bars, they were investigating anti-racist campaigners and groups, infiltrating them, spying on them, some of them having children with the women that they were spying on. Rather than going out and catching the killers of these people, they'd rather spy, they'd rather infiltrate anti-racist movements to try and make them violent, to try and divert their cause against racism, to try and encourage them to be violent and disregard them, and that they tried to find evidence to disregard the Lawrence family, to say that they were this and that, and dirty lies about them, because that's what the police do. It's not their job to find the killers of young people who've been killed when they were walking home from a shop. It's to then infiltrate groups who are fighting against racism. I think that's a really disgraceful thing that has just come out of everything that's happened around the Stephen Lawrence family, who 20 years later have only gotten justice now.
Yeah, crazy.
Just a little announcement. There's an emergency meeting